Right now, you're probably holding something made in China. Your phone, your laptop, maybe your headphones. But here's what you don't know. Inside every one of those devices are 17 elements that almost nobody can name. Promethium, gadolinium, dysprosium. They're called rare earth elements, and China controls nearly all of them. Without these elements, you can't build fighter jets. You can't make smartphones, no wind turbines, no electric vehicles, no advanced military systems. And here's the scary part. The United States imports about 70% of its rare earths from China. Europe, more than 90%. But here's the thing. Other countries have deposits too. Brazil, Australia, even the United States. The problem isn't finding them, it's refining them. And China controls 90% of global refining capacity. So how did one country end up with this much power over modern technology? Was it cheap labor, government planning, strategic subsidies? The real answer goes back hundreds of millions of years. Because what's buried beneath China's mountains took ancient geological forces to create. This is how the Earth itself made China the rare earth king. Here's the thing about rare earth elements. The name is completely misleading. They're not actually rare. Cerium is more common than copper. Neodymium is more abundant than gold. So why call them rare? Because they're geologically scattered. Unlike gold or copper, which form rich veins you can mine, rare earths are spread thinly through huge volumes of rock. Finding them isn't the problem. Extracting them economically. That's where it gets brutal. To get just a few kilograms of usable material, you have to process tons of ore. It's expensive, toxic, and leaves behind radioactive waste. So why go through all that trouble? Because these 17 elements make modern life possible. Neodymium creates the strongest permanent magnets on Earth, powering electric vehicles, wind turbines, and smartphone motors. Europium and terbium make your screens glow with vivid color. Dysprosium keeps magnets stable under extreme heat, essential for military systems. Without rare earths, you don't get smartphones. You don't get renewable energy. You don't get advanced weapons. An F-35 fighter jet alone uses more than 400 kilograms of them. And demand is exploding. As nations race toward electric vehicles and clean energy, global rare earth demand is expected to roughly double and possibly triple by 2030. But here's the twist. 40 years ago, China barely produced any. The United States dominated the market. So how did China go from almost nothing to controlling the vast majority of global production? To find out, we have to go back, not just decades, but hundreds of millions of years, to when the Earth itself laid the foundations for China's rare earth empire. The story begins about 300 million years ago, during the Paleozoic era, when Earth's continents were still colliding and reshaping. When tectonic plates crash into each other, they don't just form mountains. They create geological pressure cookers that concentrate minerals in ways that can't happen anywhere else. Deep underground, magma rose from Earth's mantle, carrying dissolved rare earth elements. As it cooled near the surface, those elements crystallized and settled into specific rock formations. This is where China's story begins. The land that would become China sat at one of the most active geological intersections on Earth. The Indian plate was colliding from the southwest. The Pacific plate was subducting from the east, and volcanic arcs were forming across its center. These weren't single events. Over hundreds of millions of years, waves of tectonic activity layered mineral deposits on top of one another. Volcanoes brought new materials to the surface. Mountain building compressed and concentrated them. Erosion exposed them. Then new eruptions added even more layers. Each cycle made China's deposits richer and more accessible than anywhere else on the planet. Fast forward to today, and the results are striking. China holds an estimated 44 million tons of rare earth reserves. Vietnam has 22 million. Brazil and Russia each hold 21 million. And the United States, only about 2.3 million tons. But it isn't just about quantity. China's deposits are close to the surface and located near existing mining infrastructure, making extraction faster and cheaper. In contrast, the United States deposits lie in remote desert mountains. Australia's are deep in the outback, far from ports and refineries. Canada's sit in the Arctic, where operating costs are extreme. Those differences translate directly into economics. Extracting rare earths in China can cost $5 to $10 per kilogram. In the United States, $20 to $40. And in Canada, even higher. Geography gave China both abundance and accessibility, a rare combination that turned ancient geology into a modern advantage. But that alone doesn't explain how China came to dominate the entire industry. Because in the 1980s, the United States was still the world leader in rare earth production, while China was barely on the map. What happened next wasn't just a story of geology, it was a story of strategy and how China turned natural advantage into global monopoly. In the 1980s, China was just beginning to open its economy, and one leader saw an opportunity that would change everything. In 1992, Deng Xiaoping made a statement that became legendary. The Middle East has oil. China has rare earths. It wasn't just a slogan, it was a strategy. China would use its geological advantage to dominate an industry the rest of the world barely understood. At that time, the United States led global production. California's Mountain Pass mine supplied most of the world's rare earths. American companies had the expertise, the technology, and the market share. But rare earth mining is brutally toxic. The process uses strong acids, produces radioactive byproducts, and contaminates groundwater. As environmental regulations tightened, costs skyrocketed. Cleanup at Mountain Pass alone topped $100 million. China faced none of those restrictions. Its mines operated with minimal oversight, low labor costs, and little concern for pollution. That gave China the freedom to do something bold: flood the market. Prices dropped by more than half almost overnight. Western producers couldn't compete. One by one, mines outside China shut down. Mountain Pass closed in 2002. By 2010, China supplied over 95% of the world's rare earths. Then, China moved up the chain. It built the refining plants, then the magnet factories, then the high-tech manufacturing lines. Even rare earths mined elsewhere were shipped to China for processing, because no other country had the capacity or the expertise to refine them at scale. Today, China controls about 90% of global refining capacity and produces nearly 90% of the rare earth magnets used in modern technology. By the time the rest of the world realized what had happened, it was too late. The supply chains, the infrastructure, and the knowledge had all shifted east. Geography gave China the resources. Environmental economics gave it the advantage. And strategy turned both into a monopoly. And in 2010, the world finally saw just how powerful that monopoly could be. In September of 2010, a Chinese fishing boat collided with Japanese Coast Guard vessels near the disputed Senkaku Islands. Japan detained the Chinese captain. What followed changed how the world viewed rare earths. China quietly halted exports to Japan. No official announcement, no public statement, just shipments that stopped clearing customs. Within weeks, Japanese manufacturers were in crisis. Toyota couldn't get materials for electric vehicle motors. Sony and Panasonic faced shortages in critical components. Production lines slowed. Entire factories risked shutting down. Global markets panicked. Prices for some rare earths surged tenfold. Neodymium jumped from $50 per kilogram to over $500. That's when the world realized China had turned geography into a geopolitical weapon. The dependence was staggering. The United States imported around 80% of its rare earths from China. The European Union relied on China for 98%. And Japan, even after the crisis, still depended on China for more than half its supply. This created what military strategists call a single point of failure. One country controlling materials that entire industries depend on. If that supply stopped, everything would stop. And it's not just about consumer electronics. Modern military technology relies on Chinese rare earths too. Each F-35 fighter jet contains more than 400 kilograms of them. Submarines, guided missiles, radar systems, night vision equipment. All of them rely on rare earth magnets and alloys that trace back to China. Think about that. The most powerful military on Earth depends on a strategic rival for critical materials. As one Pentagon analyst put it, rare earths are the vitamins of modern industry. You don't need much, but without them, nothing works. China doesn't need to use this leverage often. The threat alone is enough. In trade negotiations, in territorial disputes, in technology talks, it gives China a card no one else holds. This is power created by geography and perfected by strategy. But it raises a question that still haunts Western leaders. Can anyone break China's monopoly? Or has geography already decided the outcome? Other countries have rare earth deposits. The United States, Australia, Canada, Vietnam, Brazil, all have significant reserves. The US reopened the Mountain Pass mine in 2018. Australia is developing new projects. Canada is exploring deposits. There's activity happening, momentum building. But here's the problem. Mining is only step one. Refining rare earths into usable materials. That's where China's real dominance lies. They control about 90% of global refining capacity. And refining rare earths is brutally complex. It takes more than 10 separate processing stages. It uses highly toxic chemicals. It produces radioactive waste. And it demands expertise that takes decades to develop. Building new refining capacity isn't easy. It costs between $1 and $2 billion and takes 5 to 10 years, at minimum. And that's assuming you can navigate environmental regulations and find communities willing to host such facilities. Meanwhile, China isn't sitting still. They're investing in rare earth projects across Africa, Latin America, and Southeast Asia, locking up supply even from deposits outside their borders. This creates a catch-22. To compete with China, you need massive investment. But Chinese production is so cheap, it's hard to justify the cost. And by the time you build new capacity, China can flood the market again and make your investment worthless. Experts estimate that building a complete rare earth supply chain outside China would take at least 10 to 15 years, and massive government support. But even then, China still holds the advantage. Larger deposits, lower extraction costs, existing infrastructure, and decades of experience. Geography gave them the foundation. They built an empire on it. And breaking that empire means fighting against both economics and geology. So the next time you pick up your phone, remember, you're holding the result of 300 million years of geology and 40 years of strategy. China didn't just get lucky. They recognized what geography had given them and built an entire industry around it, while the rest of the world looked away. Today, they control about 80% of rare earth production, 90% of refining, and hold the keys to the technologies that will define the next century. Electric vehicles, renewable energy, advanced weapon systems, artificial intelligence, quantum computing. All of them depend on rare earth elements. And as long as China controls rare earths, they control a critical piece of the global economy. The question isn't whether other countries will try to compete. They already are. The question is whether geography will let them succeed. Because in the end, this isn't just about economics. It isn't just about politics. And it isn't just about strategy. It's about geography. And geography doesn't negotiate. China's rare earth dominance isn't an accident of history. It's geology, strategy, and advantage combined into the perfect monopoly. Ancient tectonic forces made the decision 300 million years ago. We're just living with the consequences. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Can anyone realistically break China's rare earth monopoly? Or is geography truly destiny? If this changed how you see global power, hit like and subscribe. Because geography shapes everything and most people have no idea.